This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. Raise your hand if you remember this series. Yup, it's to your eternal pain and suffering as an immortal being that has to watch everybody die around you. I believe it's colloquially known as To Your Eternity, but you know, light novel titles are so long that we gotta shorten them these days. I remember way back in the day when the first episode came out in April of 2021, people thought this thing would be anime of the year. To be honest, I couldn't blame them. To this day, it has one of the best first episodes out of every anime I've seen. It follows this immortal being that starts off as a simple orb, but as time passes, he's able to transform into various forms, each one being a person that he's met during his life. Subsequently, throughout the series, we get to see this immortal being evolve and learn how to deal with the hardships of eternal life. Yes, it's a depressing and painful show, but it's also filled with tremendously heartwarming moments. Unfortunately, as the show went on, it lost a ton of steam, and by the time Season 2 came out, nearly everyone had forgotten about our boy Fushi. It is a shame because Season 2 adapts some of the best arcs in the entire manga. It kinda gets me wondering, why was there such a massive drop in viewership? Why did so many people forget about one of the greatest fantasy anime? But to answer that question, we gotta go back to the beginning. By the beginning, I meant the beginning of the sponsor, because Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co are coming to you with some magnificent goodies so everyone can experience Japan from the comfort of their own homes. Oh, and before you ask, I did let Tyler out of the dungeon so he can hang out with his family for Christmas and New Year's. Anyway, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co are both subscription boxes that get you up to 20 exclusive limited edition seasonal flavored Japanese snacks. January's themes are New Year's snacking party for Tokyo Treat and New Year's in Hiroshima for Sakura Co. You know, they'll make great presents for the turn of the new year. Some of my favorites are the Adzuki tea because I'm a little bit of a tea enthusiast, and the Kit Kat because it's objectively the best chocolate. Make sure to use the code in the description below to get $5 off your first purchase. It also directly supports the channel so you can enjoy your snack boxes knowing that you're helping me stay unemployed. Of course, a big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for supporting the channel. Back to the video. So the author of To Your Eternity is someone named Yoshitoki Oima. That name might sound familiar to some of you because she also wrote A Silent Voice. Yeah, it checks out given how much of a tearjerker both of these series are. According to an interview, Oima started working on To Your Eternity shortly after A Silent Voice. She wanted to write in the fantasy genre because it gave her more freedom to do wacky things like a guy that holds sake in his stomach. She also mentions that while A Silent Voice explores characters' pasts, To Your Eternity explores the future. After all, if your main character is immortal, he's surely got a long future ahead of him. The crazy thing is that Oima actually came up with the character of Fushi when she was still in primary school, but he has changed a lot from his original concept. When To Your Eternity was first serialized in November of 2016, it saw a good deal of success, with its first volume ranking 17th on the Oricon charts. It might not seem that high, but the manga is competing against stuff like Kingdom, Magi, and even Kaguya-sama. Selling nearly 30,000 volumes is nothing to scoff at. The anime adaptation wouldn't arrive until 2021, and that's when the series really boomed. When I say that To Your Eternity has one of the greatest first episodes in anime history, it is definitely a tall statement. You're competing against stuff like Attack on Titan with its jaw-dropping action and Death Note with its simple but thrilling concept. As for To Your Eternity, it starts off with one of the most emotional and unique stories ever told, mostly because of two important factors: doggo and death. Brew these two ingredients together and you have an instant crying potion. Even when judged as its own solitary piece, the first episode can hold its own because it's essentially a full self-contained arc. Then for the next arcs, the series takes a step back as it slows the pacing, allowing more time to let the world and the new characters breathe. These arcs mostly follow a simple 3-step formula. Step 1, Fushi meets a new cast of characters. Step 2, there's some sort of complication that endangers the lives of the characters. Step 3, one or more of the main characters die, forcing Fushi to learn something new about humanity. It's easy to see how this cycle can get a bit repetitive when you notice it. By the time the Jananda Island arc comes around, you can probably predict what's going to happen to everyone. And no, they do not all die. Nuh-uh, some live. Even though these arcs are well written in their own right, the final arc of the first season is the weakest part in my opinion. It's not until the end that we get to see everything come together with one final death to yank those tears from your eyes. As opposed to flashy battles, it's these more quiet, introspective moments that really make the series shine. Overall, season 1 was quite solid. So solid in fact that I went on to read the rest of the manga. So what did I think of it? Well, drum roll please.
That is absolute dog.
Nah, just kidding. It was actually peak fiction. Everything leading up to the modern arc is absolute insanity, a roller coaster I did not expect given how formulaic most of the story had been up until now. As for the modern arc, I'll get to that one later, but season 2 basically covers the best part in the entire manga. Well, except for the beginning of season 2. It starts off with 3 of the most boring episodes, honestly. Some of this is important setup, you know, but it is a weak start. Not to mention the animation takes quite a dip. I always thought the animation wasn't anything spectacular in the first season, but it wasn't so bad that it took me out of the story. Of course, animation is a difficult job, and I'd never want to insult any of these artists, but it's hard for a show to stay competitive when other shows in the same season have visuals like this. Yes, I may have forgotten that the fall 2022 season also included Chainsaw Man, Spy Family Season 2, Mob Psycho, Blue Lock, Bocce the Rock, even Bleach for Christ's sake. Since I'm a greasy, unemployed gremlin with no life, I can watch all these shows at the same time, but a normal anime watcher can only spare so much of their time. Another thing that can make the show a bit deterring is Fushi, the main character himself. He's mostly just a passive character that gets strung along by whatever dangerous scenarios he finds himself in. It makes sense, really, since Fushi is basically a child for most of the show. He's more concerned with saving his friends from these random monsters than accomplishing some grander goal. But passive protagonists are usually a big no-no for most fiction. When the main character doesn't influence the plot enough, it becomes difficult for the audience to get invested because it feels less like watching somebody do something and more like things just happening to someone. In other words, active protagonists are proactive while passive protagonists are reactive. I loved Season 2's arcs because Fushi becomes more active. Season 1 was almost like a tutorial level that taught him how to walk on his own 2 feet. Unfortunately, Season 2 just had such a lackluster start that most casual enjoyers probably dropped the show. On top of that, the huge tonal shift must have made it difficult for most fans to continue, especially with all the crazy anime that were airing at the same time. It is truly such a shame because when I read through the manga for the first time, it genuinely blew my mind. I was afraid Yoshitoki Oima would just repeat the pre-established formula from the early arcs, but she managed to flip all my expectations upside down. For example, allow me to present Prince Bonchien. When he was first introduced, my initial impressions were, "You King Donkey!" And by the end of it all, I was like,
Oh dear. Gorgeous.
Yeah, when I first saw him, I thought he was so over the top that I couldn't help but feel like he came from a completely different series. In fact, a lot of the new characters almost feel like caricatures. Sure, the past arcs had some outlandish characters, but Bonchien is something else. He's just so childlike. Wait, that's familiar? Fushi was also once childlike. Is this parallelism? Oh yeah, everybody loves it when fiction draws parallels in his own story. As we can see Fushi going through his journey of maturity, we also get to see Bonchien undergo his own development as he travels with Fushi. In the past arcs, Fushi learns from his companions, but this time Fushi and Bonchien learn from each other. It's this push and pull dynamic that really makes Season 2 so impactful. The narrative also takes a step further by raising the stakes to unprecedented levels. The Knockers evolve into even more formidable foes, posing a threat not just to individuals but to the very fabric of existence. Fushi is faced with a monumental challenge of eradicating the Knockers from the planet, and it all leads to a humongous battle that still sends shivers down my spine. As the dust settles and conflict fades away, Season 2 doesn't merely conclude, it crafts an extraordinary resolution to this masterpiece of a story. It's not just a resolution to a conflict, it's the culmination of themes, character arcs, and the exploration of what it means to be immortal. And then after that, there's the modern arc. It is now a slice of life story for some reason. I'm not sure if I can speak for the entire fanbase, but I think the consensus is that this arc isn't very good. Now, I like slice of life just as much as anybody else, but the narrative really feels like it has lost itself. I actually have a theory that Yoshitoki Oima only planned up to the end of the past arc because it has such a well-made ending that wraps everything up perfectly. But then she was forced to continue the series because it was so successful.
Well, I'm not writing it. Get it!
And so, Oima continued the series to the present day without planning any solid direction. As they say, a manga editor's job is not only to make the manga the best it can be, but to also make a successful manga last as long as possible. But that's just a theory. A manga theory. Thanks for watching. Nah, just kidding, don't click off the video yet, there's still more. Anyway, To Your Eternity is such an amazing series that it's disheartening seeing people forget about it, or seeing people write reviews like this one that just insult the show. If you're someone who put off Season 2, I'm here to remind you that, yes, To Your Eternity is still amazing. Now that the year has come to an end, I have to give a massive, humongous, gargantuan thank you to everyone who has supported me. If you're still watching, tell me your hardest riddle in the comments below. Anyway, it's crazy to think that I published my first video on July 26th, and I'm nearly at like 5k subs. My New Year's resolution is to reach 69 gazillion subs by the end of next year. Also, I'm considering becoming a lewd ASMR BFE VTuber, so if anyone is interested in watching me stream, let me know so I can get a head count. And with that, I bid everyone a Happy New Year.